Hey BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Reading Corner, and it is time for an update. So I'm off today, and I'm off tomorrow. As I always say, Thursdays make me nervous because that's our busiest day, and that's also the day that it's the senior citizen discount day. They get like 5-10% off. I think we as employees get 5, and then the seniors I think get 10% discount. So they all come on Thursdays, and then it's also prime rib for like $9.99 or something at our you get prime rib, a good sized prime rib. You get a baked potato and some vegetables. It's pretty. Oh wait, not a baked potato. You get red potatoes in the little slices, and it's pretty good. We get it. We almost always get on Thursdays. We don't always get on Thursdays, but a lot of times we do. So anyway, just came from the library. I was gonna go to the bookstore too, but I decided, nah, I'll just stick to the library because our trip to Florida is coming up. So I'm trying to restrain from spending money. But I mean, I'm pretty good though on my bank account after doing my checkbook this morning. So anyway, let's talk about my reading so far. So I finished 2 books last night. Well, actually, one technically this morning. Because for some reason, I could not sleep. I might have dozed off for a little bit, but I could not sleep last night. And I think it had to do with the thing that was driving me crazy lately, that has to do with the library, and I will get to that in a minute. In fact, I actually might make a video where I talk about my feelings on the library. I think I was like really stressing about that. So, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But anyway, so what I ended up doing actually was, I didn't quite finish the Joe Hill book, Nosferatu. The one with the vampire who turns the kids and stuff. And the girl who can find things. I didn't quite, I had a good chunk to go, but I was like stressing out, and I want to devote my full attention to reading Victorian literature, or most of my attention. Maybe a small amount of it will be devoted to my library books. But I wanted most of my attention to be focused on Victorian literature. And of course, that book is a horror book. And then I never even got to Bazaar of Bad Dreams, but I decided to go ahead and return it. And I could always either buy it or get it again from the library. I mean, either way, I know it's at the library. And same thing with the Joe Hill book. Although I almost was thinking, I felt like I'm basically saying, oh, I love your father's books, and I can get through those books, but I can't get through yours, because this is the second Joe Hill book that I have not finished. Although I progressed farther in this one. In the other one, Heart-Shaped Box, I just DNF'd it. And again, it was just bad timing. I was stressing out. And this time I made the mistake of getting quite a lot of books that were pretty chunky books. They were like bricks. So along with Everblaze, I returned those, and then I ended up getting 5 books, but there are 5 books that I don't think will take as long as those books. Probably take the whole week. But anyway, the whole 2 weeks I have them before. And, so anyway, I'll show you, I also finished, so the 2 books I finished last night were Everblaze, the library book, which I think so far that's my favorite one of the series. It's the 3rd book in the series, and I decided to wait on borrowing the 4th book, and then I will borrow the 4th book maybe the next time I go to the library, or I might just wait until November. I might wait until November, because like I said, I want to devote most of my attention to Victorian literature. Although that one shouldn't take me as long to read, because I mean it is middle grade, and middle grade that goes by a lot faster. But I'm still really loving the series. I mean, there's still things, the fact that it's a book for 12-year-olds, there are aspects of it that still kind of frustrate me, and I have to remind myself, okay, this is for a younger audience. It's not for, the target audience is not 30-year-old women. It's for 12-year-olds. But it doesn't mean I don't like it, it's just sometimes certain things that qualify it as a middle grade book irk me and frustrate me a little bit. But then like I said, I remind myself, okay, this is a book for for preteens, not for an adult. I mean, as an adult, you can't read it and enjoy it, but the main audience is 12-year-olds. But anyway, and then at first I was like, oh, I'll finish up Pet Sematary tomorrow. But I did read a little before I went to bed, and then I was like, and then again, I was stressing. I could not seriously fall asleep. My mind was racing. I had so many thoughts in my head, and I was having anxiety or stressing. I mean, I really shouldn't say anxiety. I should not say anxiety. I shouldn't take anxiety lightly. Not that I do, but I mean, I'm not sure if I could really call it anxiety or not, but I was really stressing and freaking out, and my mind was racing. And then I also was thinking about, like, I always think about scenes that I would write in a story. I always play those out in my head. So that, along with stressing about the library situation, I couldn't calm down, and then I had to finish up. And then I had Pet Sematary I want to finish, so I finished that this morning. I finished it right before I left for the library. So I did my Goodreads review like just now, a couple hours ago. I gave that one 5 stars. I really love that one. I'm really enjoying my Stephen King project. It was a great story, and it has the creepy factor, of course, but it's also about people dealing with grief and how different people handle grief, and the idea of how you handle death, and if you were capable, if there was a way to bring someone back from the dead, would you do that? Would you risk that, even though there could be consequences? I mean, every story I've seen that deals with the idea of bringing people from the magical power of bringing people back from the dead, there's always consequences. There's only one exception, I think, where there wasn't any consequences to it, and that was, I think, in the Mummy Returns. But that was because they couldn't really focus on that. They were focusing on that wasn't part of the main story. I mean, it was part of it, but they couldn't dwell on that and deal with that. But I'm gonna do a separate review on that book. And then last night, because I couldn't fall asleep, I also continued reading this book right up to chapter 10 of this one. Chapter 10. The second book in the Temeraire series, and they go to China. Temeraire and Lawrence are going to China in this book because in the first book, remember, Temeraire originally came from China, and they were gonna send him to Napoleon. They were gonna send Temeraire's egg to Napoleon, but then it was Lawrence's ship that captured the egg, and of course Lawrence becomes his master, Temeraire's master. But the people of China, the royal family of China, want Temeraire back. They do not like their relationship with England is really shaky, and they don't want the English or the British having Temeraire. They want Temeraire back. So the prince shows up and is like, I want him back. But Lawrence fights him the whole time, and they and finally Lawrence ends up going with them back to China. And that's where, and they're on the boat, on the ship back to China. And of course, the stupid prince is trying to manipulate Temeraire and trying to persuade him and show him how cool and amazing China is and what has to offer for a dragon such as himself, and trying to persuade him. And every time there's something a little crack in Lawrence and Temeraire's relationship, Lawrence is hard on Temeraire, hurts his feelings, the stupid prince takes advantage of that and tries to manipulate Temeraire, and that just, I am so nervous. I mean, I don't think it's going to end bad, of course. I was actually talking to Terry about this, and unfortunately for her, every time she watches, TV shows and TV shows, they always, a lot of times in her experience, they have ended bad. So she doesn't have, sadly, she doesn't have a lot of faith in like shows and stuff. So I mean, obviously this is not a show; it's a book series. And if she was reading this, I wonder if she would be more nervous then, if that's the case, because would she feel like, or maybe because it's not about a romantic relationship, it's a relationship between best friends, then maybe she wouldn't be as nervous, maybe she wouldn't care as much. But I was just talking about that and saying, you know, I'm a little nervous that that it kind of made me think of our conversation we had yesterday. I think it was yesterday that we had it. Yeah, because we were talking about Asian, because we ended up talking about Asian soap operas now. In her opinion, they're better than American soap operas. But I still love Temeraire and Lawrence's relationship. It's growing. Feels like a real relationship. Like almost like a parent-child relationship where it's our friend or like actual friends where it's rough around the edges. There are things that Temeraire doesn't understand. There are things that Lawrence doesn't understand. They don't agree on every single thing. And like I said, there's a little, you know, sometimes they have not exactly fights. Like they haven't had any big fights or anything. But there's been tension throughout the book between them. And it's even more nerve-wracking because what if the prince weasels away in there and takes advantage of it and persuades Temeraire to, you know, stay in China and forget about Lawrence. But they're both very loyal to each other. So I don't think I have anything to worry. And besides, I have, like, this series, this is only the second book, and there's book 3, there's, like, I want to say, like, 7 books. Let me just... Yeah, I think there's 7 books. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, no, wait. There's 9 books, I think. There's 9 books in the series. So, I mean, and it's called the Temeraire series, so, and Lawrence is, like, a main character, so I imagine I don't have anything to worry about. But there's always that little bit of nervousness, or at least frustration and anger. Because you're like, because I'm like, don't be taking advantage of that. Don't be taking Temeraire from Lawrence. You can't have him. You lost him already, so it's too late. You can't take him back. I mean, I understand though, like, China's a whole new country, another country, and the food is, although, my experience, I do like Mongolian barbecue. But I imagine the food is great. And so, and they revere dragons in China. Dragons are very, so I can understand the temptation Temeraire would feel, you know? I mean, the idea of being tempted to join. But I think Temeraire has grown attached to Lawrence and loves Lawrence. So I don't think we have anything to worry about, no matter what the prince does. I feel bad because I cannot pronounce the names. I mean, there's some names that are American-sounding names I can say, but, like, the prince's name, I don't know how to say it. I mean, that's why the idea of audiobooks, I still think audiobooks are great. It's just I don't have a car. I would only listen to them in my room when we go on road trips. Although it would be very convenient when we go on road trips. Because then I don't have to listen to the radio. I should mention that to my mom. I should talk to her about them and be like, okay, so I know audiobooks are just as expensive or even more expensive than hardback book, but I wouldn't, I mean, yes, I have my music to listen to, but it would be also nice if it would be a way for me to still get some reading done, and I wouldn't have to listen to the reading, because when I'm in the car with them, I have to listen to because I don't drive, so it's not my car, so it's only fair that I listen to, I can't just object to what they're listening to. It's not my car. I'm just the passenger. And there's very few road trips where it's just, just me and my dad, just me and my mom. And when it's just me and my mom, then I'll have to listen to Dr. Laura and that finance guy she listens to. Ramsey something is the same name as that chef guy, but he's not the same guy. He's a finance guy. A finance guru, I guess. But with my dad, he'd be more open to allow me, putting stuff on that's not Dr. Laura. she just irritates me so much. Like, I agree. I can understand her points of view. And my mom there was an issue we were talking about a few weeks ago, and and unfortunately she made me reconsider and think, well, you make a good point. And it's also Dr. Laura's viewpoint. So I'm like, dang it. I might almost disagree with her just to disagree with her because I don't like her as a person. But then, of course, that makes me no better than some other people. So anyway, I'm really liking it. I don't know why, but sometimes they're just, as I've gotten older, the more old-fashioned writing style, like how it's written here, like it's almost like classic novels, like how Victorian literature is written, but it's not written as old-fashioned, I guess. It's kind of like a mixture of that classic writing classics and modern writing. Although it does make it hard to small print. Like when I was reading last night because I couldn't fall asleep, it took me a minute to get started because I had been in the dark for quite a while. So turning on the light and adjusting my eyes to the light was a little hard. Okay, and then I finally started reading. I finished chapter 1. I finally finished chapter 1 of Blood of Elves, and then I started chapter 2 when I was at the library. Although, now the problem with this is one of those books where it probably doesn't have as many chapters, but the individual chapters themselves are long, and sometimes that can make it feel like the book takes longer. But, so the translator is also Danish, I think, by the look of their name. So hopefully I will get at least the first 2 books in the main series done before the show premieres. So I will consume. So the only thing for this world I will consume is the books and the show, because I'm not a video game person. So basically we're back with. I think I basically already talked about a lot of what happened in chapter 1, which is we're with Dandelion in the beginning in chapter 1, and he's a troubadour, so he's been singing the story of Geralt and Ciri and Yennefer, but then he gets captured and held hostage and tortured because these bandits, or sorcerer, and these bandits want to know about Ciri and Geralt. And he's trying to resist, but they're really causing him a lot of physical pain. But finally, Yennefer shows up to save his life. And she implies that she does have some idea of where Geralt is, but she can't essentially follow him to that place. And now, when we get back with Geralt and Ciri, they have traveled to where the Witchers, their little hideout is, and Ciri is starting to train to be a Witcher. And she has also come across, and while she's doing her exercises, like running type exercises, this other sorceress shows up. Let's see if I get her name. Triss shows up and finds Ciri and decides to offer to help her. And there is a relationship between the Witchers and Triss. Like, one of them is, I don't know if he's literally her, like, biologically, so it's literally her grandfather or not, or, like, maybe he fostered her or something. And I think she's a bit of a crush on Geralt. I think, Triss likes Geralt. But of course we know Geralt is all obsessed with, Yennefer, and they have their relationship. So again, it's one of those books where even if there's probably only like 10 to 16 chapters, they're long chapters. Which, like, like I said, it almost makes it take forever, because if they're short chapters, then you're gonna be more than eager to read the next chapter and just keep going. So you'll read quite a few chapters. Although sometimes when it's happening is like, I feel like I read a lot of chapters, but then I look and it's like only like this much of that much versus all that. Like that's kind of what was going on a little bit with the Joe Hill book. Like it would seem like I read a lot, although I finally did accomplish and did read a lot of the book. So but I still had a good chunk to go at the time. I'll probably get it again, maybe like towards the end of this year or next year. Who knows? But like I said, I want to make October mostly focused on Victorian literature. Okay, now on to the library books that I ended up getting. Okay, so well, first let me just go ahead and show you the books that I kept. Okay, so I have this one, Bernard Hill's The Fort. This is about the American Revolution. So far we've gotten both sides, perspectives from both sides, and we're currently in chapter 2, focuses a little on Paul Revere, the guy famous for the Midnight Ride. Although he did a lot more, he had a bigger impact. It's just he's most famous for the Midnight Ride. But, a really good channel for a good history lesson is of course I can't think of her channel name right now. I can't think of it. Dang it, I hate when that happens. But I don't remember. Like I'll put the channel name in the Dropbox below if I can think of it. But I think Bernard Cornwell, I think he's one of those famous commercial authors that, that you see at like the airport or the grocery store of the historical fiction genre. Because it looked like he had a lot of books. And this was the only one I think that was not medieval literature. Was not set during the medieval time. But next time I go, I'll look more thoroughly and see if there's any other books by him that aren't just about the medieval period. And so I haven't got very far. Like I said, I finally got to chapter 2 today. And again, there's a situation where there may not be as many chapters, but they're long chapters. Okay, let's just keep going. And then I also kept Longbourn. Okay, it's my own fault. I can't really get mad at her because I didn't let her know that I was making a video. Okay, so I kept Longbourn as well, which this is, again, I think I already talked about this, is that it's basically this, the perspective from the servants of what the whole Darcy Elizabeth storyline, and the Bennets Mrs. Bennet trying to get her daughters married off because Mr. Collins is going to inherit the family fortune because he's the one male relative in the family. And of course, back in the day, it was all about, the male relative is the only one that women can't inherit. This basically what happens in Downton Abbey too. Like the whole conflict that started the whole story was that Robert Crawley, or Robert Grantham, Lord Robert Grantham could not, he had only 3 daughters, and his father in the will specifically stated that a male heir would be the only one that would inherit the family fortune. So they were trying to get the oldest daughter married off, but they needed to get her married to a distant relative that they could trust, that it would still be kept in the family. So she ends up marrying, so they had a cousin, they approached a distant cousin and arranged for them. And unfortunately, the series starts off in the first episode with the guy that was going to marry dying. That he was on Titanic when it sank. So basically it's probably 1912, the year 1912. Maybe like, I guess April or April, May time when it starts. Because that, they just found out about the Titanic sinking. So I'm guessing it had to be, although news doesn't travel fast, so it could have been May. It could have been May 1912. Because I don't know how long it would be until people found out about Titanic. But anyway, and then eventually, and then the story progresses with a middle-class distant cousin, Matthew, would be the next choice. And that's where the whole love story of Mary and Matthew begins. And we do, in that show, they do have a servant's perspective as well as the main family's perspective. So this is kind of like, and in a way, it's kind of like this. It's kind of similar. So obviously, I'm basically repeating myself because I haven't started reading this. I want to start it soon. Like maybe I'll start it tonight. Maybe like one of these books I'll read in bed. But like I said, I started this one. I feel like this one is the one I should start reading in bed, and this is the one that I should start. I should read. I should continue reading during the day because it's not that it's boring. But it's not necessarily, it's not a fantasy, for instance. It's not as exciting as a fantasy. Okay, so I will focus mainly on those for the next few days. And like I said, I also need to read the Throne of Jade at some point. Because I'm on chapter 10, there's I want to say 16 or 17 chapters. So I don't have much longer. It's just, again, another situation where the chapters are really long. And then the other 3 books from the library are... So I am one of those booktubers that gets a lot of the popular or, feminist books and all that at the library. And I get them a year later or a few years later. So I saw this one, The Nightingale. This was a very popular book on BookTube, historical fiction novel. This is one that I believe, I'm trying to think who's read it, but one of the people the person I remember the most that when I think about this book is Haley from Haley in Bookland. She absolutely loved this book. It's one of her favorite historical fictions. I'm trying to think of I'm sure there's other booktubers that absolutely praise this book. It's set during World War II, and I believe it's about 2 sisters. Well, it's France, 1939, so it's right before World War II starts, I think. Or it's probably before it starts in America, I should say. Because it started in Europe already. And it's 2 sisters, and they end up living very separate lives. So that's all I can really say off the top of my head, because it's been a while since I heard about it. And then these books will inspire me. Now, the booktuber that I know, the booktubers that made me think of these books are Simon from Savage Reads and what is her name? I can't think of her name. So she's a British booktuber. She's one that I really like because she has such a positive personality. She's so bubbly and fun. It's her and her husband. And her cat's name is Minnie. I don't know why that just popped in my head. I just remember her cat's name is Minnie. I guess because I can always hear, I hear how she calls for Minnie all the time. I wish I could remember her channel name and her real name. I don't remember. I can picture her, but I can't remember her name. And of course, I feel weird describing the person because then what if the terms I use to describe them seem insensitive or rude? So, I'm always trying to be careful on how I describe a person. For instance, if a person is, fat, I wouldn't call them fat. I would just, I would say that they're a little bigger, I can't remember her name, but anyway, so I'm talking about the power, which is about when these women all of a sudden discover they have power, like literal power. I'm not talking like political power, like metaphorical power. I mean the like physical power that they can hurt men. Like I want to say there's something to do with electrical charges or something. I mean, I guess I'm thinking by the cover. Like I'm thinking cover because of the cover. Like this reminds me of electricity. And then, of course, you're thinking power, so power of electricity kind of thing. And it's also recommended, there's the blurb at the top is by Margaret Atwood, whose sequel, The The Handmaid's Tale, The Testaments, just came out, literally. It's a really pretty cover. I like the whole green. I love green. The color green. Not green. Although that's one of those colors that I like certain shades of green. Now, normally, I don't like the shade of green because it's a brighter green on that cover, on the Testaments cover. But in the case of that, I like it. Like, I like darker greens, like forest green, or like camouflage, like a Vietnam uniform green for, I guess maybe that's forest green. But for, like, clothes and stuff. Like, I like this green. And then, but yeah, Margaret Atwood, she blurbed it, electrifying, shocking, will knock your socks off, then you'll think twice about everything. And I think the impression it gives is that it's like power can corrupt either sex. Like both men and women can be easily corrupted by power. Because a lot of people are like, oh, women should rule the world, women are superior. In fact, there was a Charmed episode from the last season, season 8. I'm telling you the old Charmed, not the new one, which I still have not watched. I keep thinking about it. Although another person said yesterday, one of the my coworkers I've kind of become friends with, she was saying how she feels like the new Charmed isn't as good. But I try to give something a chance, at least. But anyway, what was I gonna say? Oh, yeah, so there's an episode where we have Kaley Cuoco as the new character on the show. What is her name? I can't think of her. Billy is her name. And they're like, Billy and the girls are working with the FBI because, they had to fake their own deaths at the end of season 7. So then they tried to hide, but then people were suspicious of them. The demons and the government were a little suspicious that they supposedly died. But eventually, they have to reveal them, Billy kind of guilt trips them because it's like they have to be super careful and they can't get involved in saving every innocent, and Billy kind of guilt trips them into that. So they end up revealing themselves again, and Homeland Security, they work with Homeland Security, and Homeland Security, Agent Murphy is like, wants them to look at all these cases that he suspects have supernatural involvement. So when they're going through the case files, Billy comes across a magic belt that gives her superpowers. So she ends up having like this whole power surge going on where women rule the world and they're more powerful, and men suck, and men need to disappear or be invisible at least. So it kind of also dealt with the whole idea of, we assume that women, as women, that we would be better and we wouldn't be as easily corrupted as men are. But women, we're human beings too. We can just be as easily corrupted, and we can easily enjoy the feeling of power. I mean, that's why you have a lot of stories where women are villains, like Cersei Lannister in A Song of Ice and Fire series. She wanted to sit on the throne, the Iron Throne. And, eventually, now, I know a lot of people did not like the ending of the TV series, and no, George R. R. Martin is not going to change it, but the book is going to probably not just probably, he will, because I trust George R. R. Martin. I'm not as freaking out or concerned as everyone else is, as a lot of people are. But George R. R. Martin will probably explain how Dany got to this point in the book series, by the end of the series. Because she ends up also being kind of corrupted by power. But I mean, originally she had good intentions. And you can see where it would eventually go into that direction, because a lot of people, they're tempted by certain power so that they can fix things, but then the power kind of seduces them. It makes them realize, and they end up being no different than their enemies. So I feel like that season just didn't, the last couple seasons were rushed, so that's why I felt like it didn't do a good job, and it didn't make any sense, because all of a sudden, Dany's all of a sudden power hungry and stuff. I mean, the only thing I have a hard time defending is how Cersei died in the show. But anyway. So yeah, there's that. I can't wait to read this. This might be a book I might bring with me when we go up to at the end of September. I almost want to bring books like this. I have this weird, and maybe it stems from insecurity and feeling the need to prove myself. Not that I need to prove myself to my friends and family, but it's I almost want to be here, I'm reading something like this. I always want to read certain books in front of certain people. Not that I'm shoving the book in their face and be look at me, look, I'm reading this book. But, I want to be reading certain books and for them to see me reading certain books. Be see, I read this kind of book too. Not just, those, silly stories or make-believe stories. I also read stories that could become real life. Not necessarily the power of them women having dangerous physical powers, but although you never know with science. Okay, well, alright, enough of that. Okay, so the other book that I feel is kind of a feminist book. I wish I could remember her name. Oh, Lauren in the Books. That's who I was thinking of. Lauren in the Books. That's what I was thinking of. She's the one with the cat named Minnie. She's the one who she and Simon from Simon Savage Reads were the ones who kind of introduced me to these indirectly. Because when I say these books introduced me to these books, it wasn't because they talked to me directly and messaged me. It was more because the way they talked about this book got my attention. So Lauren in the Books got my attention for this one, which is basically a feminist, it's like the Handmaid's Tale kind of situation where the government controls how many words women can say. Oh, okay, so they're no longer allowed more than 100 words per day. So they can only say 100 words per day. It kind of reminds me, like I said, makes me think of The Handmaid's Tale, where it's kind of like women are controlled by the government, and particularly by men. But like I said, this time instead of women being made into baby making machines, they're basically, their vocabulary is controlled and they are uneducated. They are not allowed to be educated. They can't be taught to read or write. And they can't hold down jobs. This one reminds me of the Minky Jameson, the actress Minky Jameson. I think that's what it reminds me of. But anyway. Yeah, so I cannot wait to read that. So that is my library, what So that is what's going on today with my reading. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you have not, and you like what I have to say. And I hope you are enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you later. Alright, bye!